And action.
Wow.
The green screen is so good on this show.
Beautiful smile, thank you.
You would never know that it's green screen.
For everyone out there who doesn't know what green screen compositing is, we take this green screen and we basically can say we're in Hawaii, we're in New York, we're on top of the Empire State Building. We can be anywhere that your imagination can take you.
Shut up, really?
When we started to try to visualize this show, we realized that, you know, you can go into various parts of Los Angeles and recreate Manhattan, but it's near impossible to recreate Queens. And that's when it was really Silvio said, look, we can do this in green screen. I've done this before.
I can't believe I've never crashed a wedding reception before. What an amazing way to get free cake.
My job for Ugly Betty is to basically take Betty to New York while they're shooting her here in LA. So we bring her to the streets of New York, for an example, in a shot like this where we have Betty who exits the building and walks into a bus stop. This was shot over on the back lot of the Betty Studios, and you can see this is all Betty on green, and we take some of the place that we shot in New York and mix the two together.
No comment! No comment! Ow!
Betty's house, the front of Betty's house, I didn't see it on the stoop, the front of Betty's house is just like this little wall, and then they put green all around it, and they put in the neighbors. They put in the neighborhood and the skyline and everything. It's all fake.
Wow. I went out with the guys in early September of last year with a little unit over a weekend. We shot a bunch of plates of her neighborhood, of other parts of New York that we use all the time. But the great thing about CGI is you can tweak an exterior that wasn't perfect and make it perfect.
So in this shot, for example, this is one of the shots of Betty's neighborhood. So we start with the green screen layer, and then we basically bring in the additional houses on the street, the sky, and then the elevated train.
If you're looking at the house to your left, if you look down the street, you actually see a little skyline of New York, which doesn't really exist, but it's great.
In this instance, they needed a stock plate that was all part of the big snowstorm that hit. So we had some of the footage that we shot in New York on a rainy day in the summer, and we started painting in snow, and then we added some icicles. There's a lot of enhancement that we do just to give a little more life or excitement to the plate.
We can actually do handheld stuff, we can do dolly moves, we can do all those things you couldn't do once upon a time, not so many years ago.
By having the houses built in 3D, what it allows us to do is really dynamic camera moves, and what you get is proper perspective shifting on all the geometry and architecture.
Reporting live in Jackson Heights, Queens, where Claire Mead has turned herself into the authorities.
You know, sometimes we have to do green screen and we have to be watching TV and there's nothing there and we're like, and that's a little tricky. Things in cars when there's a green screen background. And the windows are fake. There's an episode where Vanessa throws my cell phone out the window and she was like, so when do I pull down the window? They're like, we're gonna do that later. I'm like, what? It's all fake.
Oh, you are done dialing, Nancy.
It's a difficult process, but again, it's a learning curve. And now, whereas in the first couple episodes, the actors would all sort of be looking at each other like, where are we? Now it's a bit more rote. It also pays to have really good actors.
And cut. Beautiful, guys. Excellent.
They did the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was all green screen, and I couldn't believe it. I read it in the script, and I was like, oh, they get to go to New York. And they're like, no, they're not going to New York. They're going to do it here on a stage.
The scene we're doing right here behind me is a walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. Daniel and Betty have been out on sort of a platonic date all evening, and the first rehearsal was a bit dodgy. I had to explain to America and Eric where things were and which way the city was and where the railing is, and you know, they're all kind of lost because they're staying in this green void.
It is difficult for the actors to be here, not on the Brooklyn Bridge, but having to act like they are. So in this instance, we gave them what is a really fancy wooden 2x4 that's painted green as a railing. But it's enough for them to kind of give them a little bit of something to lean on, something to them to interact on. And you can see that when you're watching it just as the green, it's not as exciting. And I guess that's where our magic comes into play.
I'm not used to seeing the city from across the river.
Really? It's the only way I've ever seen it.
We're just surprised at how amazing the effects guys are. They create everything, the warmth, the cars, I mean, the entire vibe of what's going on.
Very good, guys. Thank you.
And a brilliant bit of choreography and directing to make that work, and it's a fantastic scene. And really glad we did it because it showed everybody that you can do a scene that really is at the emotional heart of the entire episode, but it's all CGI.